Welcome, everyone. Of course, I'm Amelia Fontanelle. I'm the Vice President for Programs for the American Printing History Association. And it's my honor to host from the RIT Cary Graphic Arts Collection, the 31st Lieberman Lecture. This annual event was first held in 1987 to mark the achievements of J. Ben Lieberman, who was the inaugural president of AFA. Lieberman believed in the lasting power of the press and the right of anyone to wield it to exercise freedom of expression. And his position still applies in our changeable 21st century, and it's especially timely in regards to our speakers today. I'm really delighted to introduce two excellent printers as AFA's guests. They are Jennifer Farrell of Starshaped Press in Chicago. She is our Lieberman lecturer. Since 1999, she has been the proprietor of Starshaped, where she has cultivated an exquisite collection of vintage metal and wood type. As an expert compositor and imaginative designer, she transforms them into creative broadsides, cards, and books. Jennifer's work is celebrated internationally, and she's an active educator who passes on her vast knowledge through workshops and conferences, just like the recent Ladies of Letterpress, and her longtime Starshaped internship program. Today, she'll inspire you with her latest portfolio that captures the dynamism of the Windy City. It's called The City is My Religion. After Jennifer's presentation, Ben Blount will conduct an interview. Ben is a fellow graphic designer and letterpress printer who operates out of Make Design Studio in nearby Evanston, Illinois. He believes in the power of the printed word as well through his books and prints, with work also exploring questions of race and identity. Both Jennifer and Ben were part of an exclusive group who designed covers for the recent United States of Letterpress series that was just issued in September by Field Notes. So the format will be that if you have any questions, please type them in the chat and I will make sure that they are getting answered. And as a reminder, this session is recorded. And without further ado, please help me welcome Jennifer Farrell of Starshaped Press.
Hello. I have one bit of housekeeping before I kick it over to my screen sharing, because that's what I'm going to be doing in front of you today. I am in my studio. It is the middle of the day, which means that things happen in my building, like deliveries. So if you hear something like a doorbell or a knocking on my door, I'm going to ignore it, but just understand that that's the normal run of things. So I am going to kick this over to this, and okay. Do we all see that star? Amelia, do you see it? Can you nod at me if you see? Yes. Okay. Awesome. Okay. I have run Starshaped for 21 years now, and I have focused much of my work on preserving and advancing the existing materials that are within the craft of letterpress, and in particular metal type. And the mission of my studio, which you see here, has always been to create work for and with my community. And that work ranges from business cards to social stationery to celebratory posters and packaging, you name it. This is something that I've been hearing a lot lately, and we could go on about where it's coming from and what it's in reaction to in light of recent events, but I find it really frustrating and really short-sighted, largely given my recent project. And this is a project that organically morphed into physicality over a few years and is a testament to the city as a source of healing and comfort, as I came to grips with in a few short years the grief of losing my husband to a rapid cancer that completely forced our lives into a new direction. A substantial house fire a year after his death that displaced me and my kid and our animals for a while. and my child's second and third major surgeries and subsequent radiation to try and stem ever-growing tumors. And all of this was within about 4 years. I coupled the centering I got from walking to work, seeing friends and fellow business owners and familiar sights with the comfort of working with my hands, and developed a series of prints that could bookend the first 25 years of my life in Chicago. And they would encompass 3 layered elements: a grouping of typefaces that function as a modern specimen that are somehow related, but not in the traditional sense. They have some connection to my life and my work with personal anecdotes and stories. And there'd be a connection to my home, the city of Chicago, and what it provides for me in a way that some might consider spiritual. Now, my blog has a really straightforward and linear explanation of the building of all of these prints, though I'm finishing up the final post now, so bear with me. So you can see that if you want something that's really detailed on that level. But here I'd rather look at them as a whole to show the layering of the themes that carry through and connect them all. I don't know why this is not allowing me to. There we go. Arrow snafus. So in a shop with over 700 metal typefaces, it was more important to me that they were grouped to convey an idea and not simply in the way they'd have been in an old specimen book. So each print, as with each project in the studio, starts with a series of questions that I ask myself, or I make my fellow artisans ask me because I don't live and work in a vacuum, in order to narrow the technical parameters. Is there a collection of typefaces that are so reviled and yet so insistent on existence and in demand that they're still cast today? Are there faces that inspired waves of street art that's both in the alleys and on the train boards when the graffiti writers get CTA jobs? Are there typefaces in my collection designed by women that can breathe frustration into a print about the comments thrown at me by men over 2 decades? Maybe something designed by a woman who knew a little about attempting to work through very difficult times? What typefaces date back to the Great Chicago Fire? Do they stack in a way that resembles sedimentary layers that subsequent versions of the city are built upon? Are there strong, bold typefaces that convey a message simply, the way a protest signs do at many of the rallies in the city? Like the ones in the photos my late husband took in 1999 of the Serbian protesters, just one of the many rallies that he used to document. What typefaces were in vogue when my studio's building was built? Can neighborhoods be represented by type families? And if that type family is German, is it another immigrant bringing some vibrancy to the city? If there aren't typefaces that look like teenage handwriting, are there any that feel like it? Something so decidedly analog that it belongs on a cassette tape? And are there 2 decidedly different type styles that can tell similar stories of important foundations in the same paragraph? So I applied for a fellowship at the Newberry Library to do some research for a few of the prints. Because of their substantial collection of printing related materials and archives of the weirdos that make up Chicago's past. And I was on the train when I found out that I got it. And Joe, my kid, and I did a little quiet happy dance in rush hour because these kinds of wins since becoming single parent are few and need to be celebrated. And I wanted to spend some time there with these word ornaments from 19th century. They're little decorative pieces used to jazz up type, because I have a lot of them. And like Legos, they don't really make sense in terms of how they fit together until you see a manual. So in this case, it was a 19th century manual. And I wanted to see the hands of the people that made these items, especially the typos, because we all make typos. And seeing these from over 100 years ago connects me to the typesetters of the past in a really tangible way. And I understand exactly the sleight of hand that put this character in upside down and how fast it happened. And then sometimes I would just sit in the Chicago room that they have at the library and have a quiet moment to meditate with the past and look at the maps and think about the people that were there before me. And not all of these stories are great, but they are very real. I looked a lot at the work of Elizabeth Friedlander, designer of this eponymous typeface, and the only one in my collection that's designed by a woman. And incidentally, I acquired this nearly complete run of it from another woman in the area. I've been really fortunate to design and produce ornaments with two women, Jerry McCormick from Virgin Wood Type and Jessie Reich of the former 3-ton Bridge Type Foundry. And both of these appear on a quilt-like print, onto which I placed just a handful of the comments that I have heard from men over the course of my printing career. And this very structure of vicinum in horto, or neighborhood in a garden, which is a play on Chicago's Herbs in Horto motto, which means city in a garden, which incidentally mimics this municipal symbol, which is shown here in the former main library turned cultural center, would not have been easy to recreate without this precision furniture, these wood frame-like pieces that were designed, developed, and produced by Jessica Spring from Typographic Press, another woman I call a friend and sometimes collaborator, a person I also go to for big picture parenting insight, especially around midnight when my self-doubt really sets in and the texting starts. I'm raising a Chicagoan now who's a teen and thanks me regularly for living in the city, because they were born with what I've grown to know, that the city offers this vibrancy and freedom and a connection to others that's unique, that people can be so entertaining and surprising. And sometimes just by the sheer proximity and the number of people and the fact that we don't have to live in a car to get around, a total stranger can completely make your day. So 3 weeks after our house fire, Joe played Mrs. O'Leary in the school play. And this is the poor immigrant who, along with her poor cow, was falsely accused of starting the Great Chicago Fire. And as I surveyed so much of the damage in our own home, I considered how we're always building on top of something else and making choices about what we preserve and what stories we tell. And so each print in this project is made of layers, from the development of the text and the design to drafting out the support materials that help tell the story and were then turned into blue lines with the project. And the blue lines were printed at a local shop, Fata Morgana Press, which is run by the very accomplished printer, Mary Claire Butler. There's no doubt about the importance of brick to the city of Chicago, not only as a building material in the wake of the Great Fire, but also economically. And in the 20s, when my little bungalow was built, there were over 700 million bricks produced in a single year. For this project, my bricks were ironically made out of wood and then layered in ink to resemble the tones and textures that we see. The Chicago common bricks, as they're known here, are uniquely yellow and pink and made up of everything that's in this local clay, and were never deemed good enough for face brick. So these, exposed in my home after the fire, or these ones that are from the Newberry Library, exposed after a recent renovation, are reserved for the hard work of the sides, the alley sides, and the interiors of the buildings. They're really the working class brick, and possibly the one thing that unites the entire city. You will literally not walk more than 2 blocks here without seeing them. So these bricks remind me of what I love best about the city too. And it's the people that Studs Terkel called the ordinary heroes, these extraordinary ordinaries. And I wanted to pay homage to these unsung heroes in the same size form as an actual Chicago brick. In the story that's intertwined with my own foundational story of motherhood in these pinks and the yellows of our bricks. And then just for a moment, I let both of these foundational stories wear a great big Renaissance-esque halo. So my little studio is located in this building, which is in the Ravenswood area of the city. It's a little industrial corridor. And we've been here since 2003. So when I look around walking here every day, there's one image that reminds me, regardless of what's going on, that life is going on, and it's this. If the bread is delivered everywhere every day, then that day is gonna be okay. And this comforting thought makes way for thoughts about the mission work of my studio and how my type will line up each day for something meaningful. I use this idea of one small but mighty piece of type as the basis for rewriting Beatrice Ward's "This is a Printing Office" to create a new manifesto, using my words coupled with those of much more famous Chicagoans who work to highlight the stories of everyday people. My printing office will always be a place for everyday Chicagoans who need stationery or coffee or hope. I can provide all of those things, because I have so much joy in what I do. And I see so many people around me filled with purpose as they hustle through their 5 jobs while helping their friends with their 5 jobs. There's a sense of shared purpose. We had the support of an actual union for many years, as my late husband was an IATSE Local 2 member, the Stagehands Union. Chicago is, of course, known as a union town, and this spirit still embodies everything. And while there's a sadness now because of the current loss of live music and theater, my city is not silent, because there's an A side and a B side to everything, quite literally. And while the kids in my city, the kids that are forming their own grassroots orgs, protesting for change in their schools, counting the days until they're old enough to vote, are writing some of the finest poetry in the world, they're also making mixtapes again. So I did too. And the A side has all of the official sources of music in the city. And if you're a liner notes kind of person, you can crib the blue lines for all of the details. But the B side is all of the ambient sources of music and the sound in the city, and these have not ceased this year. The every Saturday parades are in cars now. The basketball courts turned into roller rinks and Zumba classes this summer. Last week, I walked by a house with a Leonard Cohen song playing in Spanish. Our connections exist through music. Like seeing Derek Carter a few summers ago, one of Chicago's preeminent DJs, mixing the Talking Heads and Shaka Khan and making the entire city dance together under the famous bean sculpture downtown. And this candid shot of Joe captures that moment, a moment that we will have again. And this is the feeling that my heart has every time I see my kid fall for the city or question something that's affected our neighbors, but not us, because of class or color, because it means the next generation is already processing what is great and also what needs to change around them. And there's so much quiet focus and contemplation in the chaos of this work, of witnessing and participating in life in the city, and then pushing and pulling all of these little pieces into something that's representative of all, or sometimes just one of these emotions. It's a call and response, and urban living requires action and accountability to oneself and one's environment. And my hope in sharing the process of this project, its inspiration, research informs, the evidence of my own senses as I navigate the city, that these things show what a rich resource Chicago is, and that it demands something of its citizens. It's a city that respects work. If you listen, it teaches you to appreciate the past, like the Union stockyards, where so many worked in horrible conditions with the idea of improving life for future generations. A city where together we garden in the backyards of our little homes and grow veggies and raise chickens and share the bounty and the failures, where I can walk around and enjoy the alleys as impromptu art galleries, but question why these artists are still excluded from traditional galleries and revenue streams. Where there's a body of water that grounds me and all the Chicagoans when we need our baselines reset. Where I can receive blessings in many languages in this wonderfully multilingual city. And if there's ever a church that's built out of these common bricks that truly represents all the stories of the people in this city, then as the Staple Singer sang, then I will take you there. That's the end. So I'm gonna kick it over to Ben.
Thank you. That was fantastic.
There, buddy.
I've seen the individual prints, but no, hearing the story told in that way, it was really, yeah, amazing. And I found myself crossing out all these questions I asked you because you touched on so many things. It was really fantastic. One thing that surprised me is that you're not from Chicago, right?
No.
So where are you from, and tell me how, because this is almost a love letter to Chicago. Tell me how the city you grew up in, or the town you grew up in, has kind of influenced you, or.
No, I was raised in a small town in Western New York and moved here to go to school at the tender age of 18.
Okay.
And stayed because it was awesome. You just had so much freedom of movement here.
And that was kind of Chicago's antithesis of kind of your growing up, and so that city vibe is what has really attracted you. And okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.